The viewfinder on this camera right here gives you more of a photography type of vibe, and in my opinion, it's just undesired. Hey folks, if you've been following along on the channel, then you might have realized that for the past month or 2 months or whatnot, I've been checking out a few different cameras to see which one would be a better fit as a replacement for my content creation video camera that would also provide some longevity. And so the two cameras that I was considering in terms of replacing the camera that I'm currently shooting with is the Sony FX30, which I did an unboxing, initial impressions. You saw a few rigs that I built out with this camera. And then I picked up the Lumix S5 Mark IIX. You know, it's a long name or whatnot. Currently I have both of these enclosed with their respective small rig cages. So that's why you see a little black framing around them with some additional mounting points. So I'm creating this video to let you know, after getting my hands on each one, what the pros and cons that I found with each were and why I'm picking one over the other, or why I'd lean towards one over the other. So the first thing that I looked at was build quality. And if I had to tell you, holding these two here side by side, which one I like in terms of build quality, even though they're both built out of some pretty nice materials, I'd have to say I like the form factor of the FX30. Like, this is freaking solid. You know, I like how you have these metal covers for the ports. It's everything. It looks like it was thought out when it came to, you know, the port placement. This is really nice. Whereas over on the Lumix, you have these rubber flaps that I just don't know if they'll hold up over a long period of time. Hopefully they do. Perhaps those that have picked this up and actually have some use cases with this, perhaps you can provide your experience using this in the description. But yeah, I don't know, not a big fan of these grip flaps for these port covers. But yeah, so yeah, that's why I would give build quality to the Sony FX30, and then it just has that flat top, you know, no viewfinder, keeping things really sleek. The viewfinder on this camera right here gives you more of a photography type of vibe, and in my opinion, it's just undesired for what I plan on using it for. I will say one of the gripes that I have with the Sony FX30 is the button placement of this on and off switch. I do not like it whatsoever. It's stiff. Sometimes I am not able to hit it. I think I turned the camera on, but it's actually not on, and that's a little annoying in my opinion. Whereas with the Lumix, all you have to do is flip this little knob here. So simple, so easy. I definitely prefer that as opposed to the button, the power button that you get on the Sony FX30. Plus, if you put this something in like a cine rig or the small rig V-mount plate, you know, you sort of have to wedge your finger in between just to get to that on and off power button, whereas you don't run into that issue with the Lumix. I also give design to the Sony FX30 because even without the small rig cage, it has way more mounting points on it for you to be able to add accessories than the Lumix S5 Mark IIX. Moving on to the next evaluation, and that would be sensor size. With the Lumix, you have a full frame sensor as opposed to the APS-C sensor that you get on the Sony FX30. So in that category, I would have to give that to this camera right here. It also features an L-mount, which, you know, there's not as many L-mount glass on the market currently than there are Sony E-mount, but, you know, L-mount, you can interchange that with compatible cameras in the future, whether that's Blackmagic cameras or Sigma cameras or Leica cameras or whatnot. I don't know if Sigma actually makes a camera, but with the Sony E-mount, their lenses are proprietary to Sony, which means you can utilize them between your different Sony cameras. But if you have a Canon camera, you wouldn't be able to put that Sony lens on there. Not even sure if there's an adapter for the Sony E-mount for you to put Sony lenses on a Canon camera, if you get what I'm saying. Not only does this camera right here have a bigger sensor, the Lumix S5 Mark IIX, but it also is able to shoot in a higher resolution slightly. With the FX30, you're getting an oversampled 4K image because the image actually or the pixels before it's downsampled into 4K is about 5.7K, whereas with the Lumix, you're getting 5.9K, closer to a 6K resolution, allowing you to, or I could be wrong with that number, but essentially allowing you to get just that much sharper of an image on the Lumix. Not only, does it shoot at that high of a resolution, but you can actually record in that resolution. You don't have to downsample it. You can record in different other options. With the Sony FX30, the highest you are capped to is the 4.7K, unless you pick up something like an external recorder, like a video assist or a Shinobi monitor that'll allow you to actually output your recording via that HDMI port and record something like Apple ProRes or whatnot. So next, both cameras are nice in the fact that they have this flip out display. So I have to give them props there. I think that's a really valuable feature to have in terms of content creation, being able to have a screen to where you can access the menu system as well as see your somewhat image of what you're looking at. That's pretty helpful, especially if you're out and about and you just need to gather different angles. Both possess that capability to tilt this screen in the same directions. So that's nice there. When it comes to looking at, the cards that you can put in this, when you look at the Sony FX30, you have 2 SD card slots, as well as you can also utilize this as a dual CFast express slots as well. So on the left-hand side is where you would insert the SD card, and then on the right side is where that CFast card could go. So for recording, this would give you the best flexibility with internal recording. So that's nice there. While you only have the for internal recording methods over on the S5iiX, the dual SD card slots, you do have the ability to record externally via this USB-C port to something like this right here. So that's pretty dope. And definitely, in my opinion, I find that way better in a studio environment where you're not worried about something hitting the cable and messing up your storage. I would find it more convenient to record via USB-C as opposed to doing an internal type of media where you then have to purchase some sort of dongle just to transfer your media and so forth and do all of that. So next, I would say, is the menu system. I would say I much more prefer the menu system that's on the Lumix camera with this black, white, and yellow menu style. It's more concise in my opinion, as opposed to all of the options that you have available when you switch into the Sony menu. I find it a bit more simple. You also get some advanced recording tools like waveforms and so forth that you're able to utilize to ensure that even vector scopes or whatnot that you can utilize to ensure that your exposure is good, you're not clipping in terms of highlights and stuff like that. I find that pretty nice, although you do get zebras over on the FX30. But yeah, so I'd have to give the menu system to the Lumix. Another thing that I like about this is the fact that you can record to Blackmagic's Video Assist and the compatibility to be able to shoot and record in Blackmagic's B-RAW, which is nice. That gives you a ton of flexibility in terms of being able to correct in post-production what you've recorded or filmed on this camera. So that's pretty dope. So next feature that I'll speak on regarding these two would be autofocus. Now, both of these cameras, luckily they do have autofocus. The Sony, with their autofocus, is being crafted and perfected for years. They have the eye detection autofocus. It's really dope. It locks on to the subject and you have good confidence knowing that you're in focus. With the Lumix, you also have their phase detection autofocus, which is really good because for a talking head video, you'll be in focus. In terms of autofocus, I will have to give it to the Sony FX30. It's just more reliable if you're in a challenging setting or whatnot. One thing I forgot to mention is that both of these cameras have great ventilation, and Me personally, I haven't encountered overheating with either of these cameras. With the Lumix, it's right there by the viewfinder on both sides, as well as under the viewfinder right here, as you can see. So that brings me to the conclusion of this video. Now, which one of these cameras do I think would be the best pro budget consumer video camera, if that's a if that's a thing? And I'd have to go with the Lumix S5 Mark IIX. Even though I really like the compact, sleek body of the Sony FX30, I just feel like with the current price droppings of a lot of the manufacturers in this space, you get the most bang for your buck with this Lumix camera. Not only is it a full frame camera that, you know, features an L-mount, so you still have access to a lot of those APS-C cinema lenses that you can throw in this camera and shoot as well in an APS-C mode. It's like dual purposing a camera, which is pretty dope. You have the optional viewfinder to utilize it if that's something you care to do. You have a simple menu system, in my opinions. When you're in video mode, you don't see none of the, you know, the photography settings or photo settings that you would prioritize if you were in a photography mode. And I find that a bit helpful. It gives you a lot less to think of when you're navigating the menu system. But because you can shoot utilizing that full sensor, you can record in what's called open gate. And that's a 6K resolution, which allows you to utilize the full ratio of the sensor, which means there's a lot of flexibility that you get when it comes to post-production and reframing to ensure that what you were shooting is exactly in line with what you were targeting towards. So that's probably something to look in down the line. It's probably not the first feature I'll dive into, if I'm being honest with it, but it's nice to know that that feature is present within this camera, and that would make this an option of a camera, certainly for someone to grow in. It's just so much that you get packed into this tiny camera for that price point. You know, right now, this camera, the Sony FX30, it's retailing for $1,600, $1,500. I was able to pick up the Lumix S5 Mark IIX for literally $1,550. For what you get in this package as opposed to the FX30, I just feel like there's more value, but I'll leave that up to you guys to determine or decide which features you found a bit more relevant to you between these two cameras. There you have it, folks. Those are my thoughts and why I would choose the Lumix over the Sony FX30. I hope you got some value out of this video. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button. I will also have affiliate links in the description. Consider subscribing to stay tuned for future tech reviews on this channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.